Wonderful. Okay, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is February 3rd, 2023. Welcome to Black History Month as well. It's 9:06 a.m. And my name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair, pronounced him, of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Before we convene, I would like to remind everyone that's present that the board is a consumer protection agency that is charged with administering and enforcing the board laws. Where protections of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protections of the public shall be paramount. The Board of Behavioral Sciences will be holding this public meeting in person and via WebEx platform. I will announce when we are, excuse me. Ole, good morning. I will announce when we are accepting public comments on the various issues. For each public comment period, we will first be accepting comments from the participants in the audience here. They are present in the room. And then the moderator will open the lines as appropriate so that the remote audience members can comment as well. Each commentator will have 2 minutes to comment on the items on the agenda. Moderator, good morning to you. Would you please provide the audience instructions on how they might participate during the meeting and at the appropriate time?
Absolutely. Good morning. When we do have public comment open, we will open up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. You can look for the question mark icon that will appear in the lower right of your WebEx screen or behind the 3-dot other options if you are on a mobile device. And we will display these instructions at the time. People can type the word comment into the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon to request to speak, and our calling users can press *3 to raise their hand.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, moderator. Now it's time for us to establish the quorum. Members of the board, when you introduce yourself, please remember to share with the public if you're a public member or if you are licensee and your name. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna have to announce that, otherwise it looks weird. So just a note for today, you'll see us moving around on between board members. We had some technical issues that started yesterday, and unfortunately, in order for the public and the audience to hear us, we have to use the internal mic and a cell phone that is connected to you all. So we apologize for this going back and forth, but we're trying our best to make sure that the reception is clear and, most important, that we don't jeopardize the communication throughout the day. So bear with us, and thank you so much. So the board members are going to introduce themselves now. Thank you.
Ross Ehrlich.
Good morning, Ross Ehrlich, public member.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Kelly Ranasinger, public member, present.
Abigail Ortega.
Abigail Ortega, LCSW member.
John Sovic.
John Sovic, LMFT.
Max Disposti.
Public member, board chair. Thank you, Christine.
Christopher Jones.
Christopher Jones, LEP member, vice chair.
Wendy Strack.
Wendy Strack, public member.
Justin Huff.
Justin Huff, MFT.
Susan Friedman.
Public member.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Annette Walker present. I also want to say Happy New Year to everyone and also reiterate our sentiments for welcoming you to Black History Month. I must say I'm intrigued by this board. I'm so happy to be here. My understanding is that last night some of our members were introduced to soul food, and it's just like, thumbs up, good going, you guys. Nice way to kick off Black History Month.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. We have a quorum.
we're going to get used to it. No problem. Okay, thank you, Christine. So I believe that and our introductions and the quorum for today, which are agenda item number 11. We're moving now to our consent calendar, item 12 on our agenda item, which is the possible approval of the November 3rd and 4th, 2022 board meeting minutes. Do we have a motion or any clarifications, if there are any, in regards to the agenda meetings?
I'll make a motion for the approval of the November 3rd and 4th, 2022 board meeting minutes.
Okay,
Before you finish that, can I just make a small amendment?
please.
I'd like to note that on page 1, Eleanor Uribe was present. She's not included on the roll.
Wonderful. Thank you for catching that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wendy. Do we have a second? So we have a second of Ross as well. Thank you. So we can do the roll call. You can, absolutely, you can actually speak. Yes, come over. Sorry, Ben, we will be.
I'm just going to turn that microphone on for you.
So many hands.
No worries.
So much going on. So.
Thank you. Good morning, Ben Caldwell, MFT. Just a couple of very small things. On page 8, line 26, if I understand the law correctly, and I may not, prohibiting the collection of demographic information should be prohibiting the mandatory collection of demographic information. My understanding, and staff can correct me if I'm mistaken, is that it may be possible to do so on an optional basis. So just for clarity. And then on page 11, line 21, I believe that should refer to the ASWB exam and not the NASW exam, since there's not an NASW exam.
Okay.
Just clarification. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, that's good for, thank you. And for the record, I believe you can confirm that about the second amendment. Thank you,
And also, I just want to make sure that motion moved includes the amendment proposed, and so forth for the second for Ross, correct? So that we can call the vote. Thank you, Christine.
We're going to
You
do public
didn't-
comment on the motion.
we're going to move about the comments. Yeah.
We did public comment, so yes, we can open it to the WebEx participants now.
Moderator, if you can please open.
Certainly, and we have opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen, and there are instructions on the screen. You can type the word comment into that text box and click send. Anyone may also raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning. I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure if she's hearing us.
Thank you, moderator. You can close the public comment. We're back on the floor with our item 13 in the agenda, which is actually the board chair report, my report. As you can see, there are a few items. The first thing is yeah, I apologize. We need to take a vote for the consent calendar. Thank you. This mic thing is distracting us so much. It's okay.
Ross Ehrlich,
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe,
Yes.
Abigail Ortega,
Yes.
John Sovek,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Christopher Jones,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Justin Huff,
Yes.
Susan Friedman,
Yes.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Christine. We're gonna do a lot of walking today. Okay, again, we're moving to item 13 of the board chair report. There are a few items to go over. Definitely, as by practice, every time we share the board member attendance, this report overall is meant to show the board member attendance for board meetings and committees during the current fiscal year. Please let staff know, for my fellow board members, if there are any incongruences or any mistakes, please let staff know after the meeting so they can be corrected, but we believe that to be current. You will see also in the material in the future board meetings, you will see the material, the list of the upcoming board meetings in our report. Please note that the March 16th, the May board meeting will also be the meeting where we are, the March one?
Oh, March.
The March 16, 20 meeting that was scheduled for petitioner hearing has been canceled since we are up to date with petition hearing. We were able to catch up with all the outstanding hearing meetings. Also, our May meeting will be the one where our new chair will be reelected.
Yes.
Just
we're chair and co-chair.
Chair and co-chair, thank you. Then we're moving to staff recognition for today. We have plenty, and I would definitely like to congratulate a couple of BBS staff members for achieving some milestones in their career. I don't know if they were able to connect with us today, but Arlisha Phillips has been in state service for 5 years and has been working at the board as LCSW's licensee evaluator. Thank you, Arlisha, for being with us. And Sasha Addison began working for the state in 2007. And since 2016, she has been working for the board. That is 15 years of work for state service. Recently, she took over the lead of the LCSW license evaluator role. Thank you, Sasha, as well. And last but not least, we have Pearl Hugh, that we all know. She has been the board criminal conviction unit manager that she has retired the past December 31st. And we would like to publicly recognize Pearl for all her dedication for the board with a certificate of recognition. She's not here today, but I know staff will deliver that to her personally. So thank you so much for the many years of service. We are so fortunate to have you share your time with us. Thank you so much. That will conclude our part of the chair report. We're moving agenda item 14, Department of Consumer Affairs update. I believe we have Melissa Gear that will, from the DCA Legislative Affairs, that will present in an update on the Department of Consumer Affairs. But I don't know. There you go. Yes. Please come forward, and we are going to give you the phone as well. Thank you.
Hold it. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is I'm the Assistant Deputy Director of the Board and Bureau Relations. Melissa Gear is the Deputy Director over Board and Bureau Relations. So thank you this morning for allowing me to be here, and Happy New Year. Happy Black History Month, and so I'm happy to be here. So this year we have a new strategic plan and logo. DCA released its 5-year strategic plan in November and officially transitioned to a new logo at the start of the new year. The new logo will be implemented gradually throughout this year, and existing items with previous DCA logo are still valid during the transition and do not need to be replaced or updated. DCA Board and Bureau leadership have been given information and resources to help with the new logo's implementation. And a centralized website is also available at www.dca.ca.gov/logo. The new plan and logo represents the department's next chapter and future, with consumer protection continuing to guide our mission and priorities. DCA holds itself to a high standard as a licensing entity, regulator, educator, and service provider. Additionally, the plan incorporates our strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as our shared commitment to each consumer. The new logo not only displays California's official colors, but it also visually represents DCA's vision, together protecting California consumers. The shield symbolizes DCA's strong and long-standing protection mandate. The state symbolizes all 40 million Californians DCA has pledged and is honored to serve. The star symbolizes consumer protection as DCA's true guiding principle, its own North Star. For questions about the department's new strategic plan or logo, please contact Melissa Gear, Deputy Director over Board and Bureau Relations. Update on the DCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. And so at the end of last year, the department established its first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, also known as the DEI Committee, to guide the department's equity strategy initiatives and action plans. Comprised of DCA Board and Bureau leadership, the DEI Committee held its second meeting on January 27th and established the committee's charter, discussed changes to the strategic planning process, and development of a DEI fact sheet. Additional resources will be forthcoming that the boards will be able to use and incorporate into their strategic plans and communications. The committee will concentrate on 3 key areas. Number 1, workforce, to find and keep diverse talent. Number 2, workplace, to actively educate leaders and employees to raise awareness and foster an inclusive culture. And number 3, marketplace, to be sensitive to diverse backgrounds and perspectives of consumers, applicants, and licensees. The department's DEI steering committee is working to implement the governor's executive order issued in September of last year, which directs state departments to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into their strategic plans. DCA's solid team is working with the DEI steering committee to develop DEI-related questions for inclusion in environmental scan surveys and SWOT analysis to help guide the board and bureaus in developing DEI-related goals and objectives as part of their strategic plans. Sample DEI objectives will also be provided to further assist the board and bureaus. Additionally, DCA is developing a video message from leaders to explain their perspective on DEI and how it relates to the board's role as regulators and policymakers. Once these new DEI components have been finalized and approved, SOLID will begin working with the DCA's board and bureaus on the development of new strategic plans or updating of existing strategic plans. And we will keep your executive officer updated as information becomes available. Reminder on board member trainings that are required. Now is a great time to review all of the necessary board member trainings and submit your certificates of completion to your executive officer and DCA at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. There are 2 DCA-wide mandated trainings for 2023, and this includes sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness. All DCA employees and appointees, including board members, will need to complete the sexual harassment prevention training this year. This training is required every odd-numbered year and is approximately 2 hours. In addition, if you are assigned a DCA email, dca.ca.gov, you are required to complete the Information Security Awareness Fundamentals 2023 training. Information Security Awareness training addresses everyone's role in protecting DCA information and data, and the training is available online and is required every year. Both the sexual harassment prevention training and information security awareness training are available in the department's learning management system, which we commonly refer to as LMS. And both trainings can be accessed online at any time, and in the next few weeks, information will be sent out via email on how to access these trainings. Board members must complete the board member orientation training, also known as BMONT, within the first year of appointment or reappointment. Ethics training within 6 months of appointment and every 2 years thereafter, and defensive driver training within the first year and every 4 years. For your convenience, these trainings are offered multiple times a year and in a variety of formats. So some are available remotely and some of them will be available in person. For more information, mandatory trainings page has been created to help members identify, access, and track specified trainings. This page includes direct links to mandatory trainings as well as pertinent information and policies specific to these training courses. The page is available via DCA Board Members Resources page under the Required Board Members Training tab. You can also reach out to either Melissa Gear or myself, Yvonne Durantes. And so the President's Training, DCA invites presidents and vice presidents to join the President's Training on February 22nd, which also happens to be after President's Day weekend, for you to remember. And it'll be held from 10 a.m. to noon. This virtual 2-hour training will outline the role of a board president, including understanding the scope of the role, managing board members, and performing administrative duties. So please sign up using LMS. The COVID-19 state of emergency and associated executive orders, N3920 and N7520, will end on February 28th. Upon the state of emergency ending, the remaining active waivers that DCA issued under this authority of state of emergency and executive orders will also be expiring. Board and committee members are required to file a statement of economic interest, also known as a Form 700, within 30 days of their appointment, annually and within 30 days of leaving office. This year's annual filing period covers the prior calendar year of January 1st through January 31st of 2022. The official deadline for filing is Friday, April 1st, 2023. And to ensure compliance, DCA requests that Form 700 filers complete the e-filing by Friday, March 15th of 2023. You should have recently received an email from NetFile with instructions on how to file your annual Form 700. And if you have any questions in regard to this, please contact Melissa Gear. And that's melissa.gear@dca.ca.gov. And so BMONT will be available in March. As previously mentioned, board members must complete BMONT within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. And on March 22nd, BMONT will be offered as a live virtual day of training and possibly in person on June 20th and also October 10th. And more information will be available soon. Members can also sign up for BMONT using LMS. And so DCA and the BBR team look forward to working and assisting you, and we are here to help and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Durantes. And
Thank you again, Mr. Durantes. If you can hold for a second in case there are any questions. Any comments from our board members in regards to the report? I just would like to add, this is Max Disposti, board chair. I'm really excited to see the DCA including the DEI work in the strategic plan because it's an intentional work, and I love the fact that because that will have a ripple effect into all the state of California in how we translate inclusivity and equity into all the policy making that we do, taking in consideration the disparity that we're dealing with. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. And thank you for that. I would like to see if there are any other comments. Otherwise, we open to the members of the public that are present here in Sacramento. Are anyone that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay. So at this point, I will ask the moderator to open to our WebEx audience to see if there are any comments coming from the public. Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome. If anyone, member of the public, wishes to make a comment on the DCA report, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right of your WebEx screen or behind the three-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Type the word comment into that text box and click send. Anyone may also raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users may raise their hand by pressing *3. Each speaker will have 2 minutes with a 15-second warning. Are there any comments on the DCA report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Yes, thank you so much, moderator.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Yvonne Durantes, for being here today. Thanks for sharing. Thank you so much. Thanks. Have a good day. And now that concludes our Department of Consumer Affairs update. We're moving now to our Executive Officer report. And Steve, you'll be next.
Thank you. Haven't had the practice here, so hopefully this works. Everyone can hear, okay? Up high? Up. Yeah. There we go. Oh, so it's got to be a pain for you guys. Sorry about that. So, yes, Executive Officer report. Our budget looks good so far. We are budgeted for $13.5 million. And so far this year, we spent $4.8 million. That leaves us with a reserve of 13 months of reserve. So it's looking good. Our budget's healthy. Currently, right now, we have 10 staff vacancies. We keep hiring, but people keep leaving. And actually, part of that vacancy level, though, is we are seeking to hire 2 limited-term positions in our registrant evaluator unit. So we have, as I'll report later, we are experiencing an increase in those applications, and we want to make sure that we're meeting appropriate timeframes. So we are hiring 2 extra people in there, and I think that will help us. It will definitely help us in the future. And I think I think we had about 2 or 3 employees that we got word on that we can actually bring on board. So all those vacancies are either in the process or are close to being filled. For the licensing report, we have 4,278 registrations and licenses were issued in the last quarter. That's quite a few. And currently our population is 133,556. Keeps growing. Seems like 1% every quarter. It's never slowed down. And I apologize there. Correction. We have 8,027 licenses that were registrations and licenses that were issued last quarter. The 4,278 were the. Sorry, I made notes because I was going to do this really good, but I apologize. My notes are wrong. So let me go back. We issued 4,278 registrations and licenses last fiscal year. Currently, right now, this year, we have 8,027 licenses and registrations issued. There we go. We received about 11% fewer applications in this quarter, and that most of those were actually in the registration unit. That was about a 50% reduction in there because we got out of the graduation season. So we're seeing a reduction there. Processing times, though, have gone up. So right now, what my big concern is with the registration applications, because those are the individuals who need to get their registration so they can begin practicing. They just graduated, and we want to get them working. With the reduction in applications, we will see a lot of, we will be making strides in getting that processing times down. They are working very hard. And as usual, one of the reasons why we are a little bit behind was due to staff leaving for promotions, luckily, not just leaving. So congratulations to them, but that left some gaps. So we've been, as usual, what we do is we bring other staff that actually know how to do that in to help out, and we look at ways to actually assist those registrant evaluators And then additionally, we are going to bring on additional people, so maybe we can be ready for the next time when we in the next graduation season. So it's a major focus for us, is to kind of figure out a better way to get those application processing times down. So we, for an exams, we administered 5,199 exams, and that was a 5% decrease from last quarter. In addition, what I'm going to start reporting, or I'm going to keep reporting on, is the different national exams. We haven't really reported on that before too much, so I'm going to, in every report now, I'm going to have that included. So we have a lot of news with the ASWB. Originally in August, we had agreed that the board agreed, or it wasn't necessarily approved, but that we would participate in a 90-day waiver that the ASWB group is actually administers. And the 90-day waiver was allowing somebody who failed the exam by 10 points or less to actually skip the 90-day waiting period to take the exam sooner. So we were working with ASWB to implement that, and we ran into some issues with actually administering that based upon how we actually send eligibilities over and our contract with managing eligibilities. So we currently manage all our eligibilities. We send them the data when somebody is available to actually take the exam. Doing this 90-day waiver, it has become really labor intensive, meaning we have to track and monitor when these people exam, and ASWB on their side also has to track and monitor, and it's back and forth communication. It is a major workload, and we were working with ASWB, and the only way that we could figure out right now is if ASWB takes over kind of the administration for these 90-day waiver requests. But because it's not necessarily in our contract, they would have to charge the candidate additional monies. And that makes sense because it is an actual additional workload. So for the period of, I think we started in September through December, we had 146 requests. 59 of those candidates have taken a re-exam. 26 candidates had passed the exam through that. So, I mean, it's being utilized, but not as much as we thought it would be. And there's some people that have actually applied for it, as you can see, and have not taken it yet. So really the 90-day waiver was kind of a moot point for them. So at this time, we're going to kind of go back to not really offering that 90-day waiver, but still exploring with ASWB possibly if there's ways we can affect that. And one of the things that we are looking at is having eventually ASWB take over the monitoring of our eligibilities. So technically that means we would give somebody a go-ahead to take the exam, and then on the other end, their computer system would monitor when the actual candidate could take the exam and when their eligibility expired. So we're looking into that. Additionally, on ASWB, the pass rates the pass rate report that came out, we noticed that there weren't all the schools from California in the pass rate. When it drilled down into the school report, our schools were not fully represented there. So we're looking at correcting that. Part of that process is looking at our own exam school codes, which we collect. There does need to be somewhat of a cleanup in that. We do have full data on those, but we have some of the data splits up the schools. There's other, naming conventions that the schools have changed over the years, the naming. And so we're working on cleaning up our school codes, and then we're going to be working with ASWB to make sure that they kind of have all that school code so they can actually provide us with better data on their end, and that will help out with the demographic data for us. And continuing the conversation with ASWB, we monitor what's going on with the after the report came out, and they have actually just started a contract with HumPro, and it's an independent nonprofit research and consulting firm that's going to actually open up and conduct community conversations with licensees to see what kind of barriers to licensures they experience and get their opinion, or not opinion, but their, their experience with the testing and such. So I think it's a good stride to start the conversation and continue where we left off after that report was kind of issued. So we're going to be looking at that and keep continuing to monitor and work with any way we can with ASWB to do that. So just a little on that. Additionally, I didn't note it in here, but we did have a conversation with OPES, our examination services, to start looking at the possibility of doing the demographic data. So we are kind of making strides on that. So hopefully we'll have something to report in May on doing demographic data for our own exams. And AMFT, we had discussed, we had the review last time at the board meeting. I've opened conversations with their executive leadership, start talking about, the possibility of us looking at accepting the exam, and I've invited them to come into May to actually do a presentation to give you some more details on their exam. Additionally, NBCC, our exam unit, has made changes to the eligibility and how we send that over to NBCC. It's actually helping out the candidates and making things easier. Lastly, on exams, a lot of exams. Pearson VUE, we have their contract. They're going to be with us again, or they're going to be doing the administration of our exams until 2024, December 31st. I'm assuming we probably will extend that. We have one more year extension on that. And I already mentioned the exam statistics. We are working on looking at the school codes and cleaning those up so we make sure that we have precise data on that. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, shoot.
You have to wait. Not that simple.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, maybe can you hold it for the end?
Hold it what?
The question for the end so we can then, no, can we question at the, here, no, that's it. So,
Okay.
and then, oh, sorry.
Hi, I just wanted to ask you, because we had a big discussion about this last time, about the way different schools had pass rates, and some of them were very, very low. And we discussed, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, we questioned, what are we going to do about that? But I don't think we ever came to any conclusion. And when I looked at that list, it was kind of shocking. There were some schools where one person passed. And I mean, even USC did not have the greatest number that you would expect USC to have. But there was such diversity among the pass rates. Have we ever come to any conclusion about what we can do about that as far as talking to those schools, or who would talk to those schools?
Susan, can you identify yourself just for the record?
Oh.
Because you didn't
Just introduce you.
Just for the record.
Susan Friedman, public member.
Hold on, I'll be right there.
I should have done that for you.
Oh, that's a good question. This is I don't know how to put it. It's a long process. I think the first thing like I was saying, was really want to make sure we're getting precise data so that we can see, that we're getting the correct pass rates for the schools themselves. The second, though, I kind of want to ASWB has taken the lead in kind of working towards offering, certain resources for educators to say, hey, this is what this is what the knowledge that people should have, and that's something that we might, eventually be able to do, is maybe put some resources out for schools. Since we don't regulate schools, it's hard for us to really, do any, I guess, legislation or statutes to encourage them or to do something, but we can, like ASW, we can provide resources and, for the schools themselves. But once again, I think it's something that our first goal is to, think about the licensees and how and helping them pass the exam. And then schools are very important, but I think it's in our conversations. But it's going to be, it's going to take a while to figure out what we can do for those to work with them. Yeah. Okay.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, you have to, because they have to hear it over.
Okay, what I don't understand is our job is to license therapists. We know there's a shortage. We know it is a gigantic problem right now. We know there are people out there aching to get an appointment, and they're waiting 8 and 10 weeks. So since we are to license therapists, it should be our job to help get more people licensed. And that would involve dealing with these schools. And if a school has one person who passes the test, it's sort of like a light bulb goes off. My God, that school either shouldn't be teaching this or they need help. And I think we need to figure out, is it the social work board people that need to talk to them? Do we need to direct them? Do we need to maybe think of some legislation? Would legislation help? I don't know. Roseanne? Thank you.
This is Sabina.
Oh, here's Sabina.
Sabina, yes, go ahead.
Just making sure you can hear me. I just want to, I know that I'm sure Max recited the statement in the beginning of the meeting about the board's role. But remember, we are a public protection agency and a regulatory agency. And we have exams in place to establish minimum competency levels for a reason. And looking out to try to just gather up as many licensees as we possibly can is not really exactly the purview of the board. So we really have to be careful in this discussion. Also, we have to remind ourselves we're just also receiving an executive officer report at this time.
Thank you, Sabina. I appreciate your intervention on this. Perhaps maybe we can finish also the executive report, and then we're almost there, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can definitely open the conversation for the rest of the board member and the public to intervene and chime in and share their considerations, taking in consideration what Sabina has just said. So thank you, Sabina, our legal counsel, by the way.
Okay. Just a couple more things. In the enforcement, we had 464 consumer complaints, 317 criminal convictions. That's an increase since the last quarter. We referred 31 cases to the AG, and they took 422 days on average to complete a formal discipline. And to complete a board investigation, it on average took 38 days. So that's pretty good. We had we had 7 petitions that were asked for. 4 of those were for modification, 1 for reinstatement. Out of those, 2 were ineligible for a petition. And we are up to date on our petition hearings, so that's good. So we'll keep monitoring that to make sure that we're not having people wait an extended period of time. And then to social media engagement, our Facebook page reach was up 58%. And our page visits for Facebook was 82%, increased by 82%, and also for Instagram, 93%. We answered approximately 21,000 emails during the last quarter. And that's group emails. That doesn't equate to actual personal emails also. So that's a pretty big, lot of communication. So their outreach in social media, there was a request to start doing more outreach and kind of not sponsoring, but to recognize certain days or certain weeks or months during the year. And so we're starting to take more of an approach for using our social media for that. And there's examples currently what we have planned, and we're still planning more, but we're working with the department to, Andrea over there, thank you, Andrea, has been working with the department to come up with some graphics and some possible posts for the website. That's kind of the tip of the iceberg, but this is a good example of what we will be starting to do. Additionally, if we get more resources, I think we could do, there's more stuff we can do, but I just kind of wanted to give you an example of what we are doing so far. Pathway to licensure videos, we've been working on these videos that will actually give the applicant more instructions on how to apply and what is needed to apply and how you can get through the process fairly easy. And I think we are planning in May to be able to show you some of those videos and have them possibly ready to go. Yeah? See, there's working on that for us too. So outreach events, you can see there's all our outreach events that we've attended. And the Breeze system updates, we had 8 Breeze updates and 34 on the list to be further developed. One of those is we are a major change in changing, adding what we call different, it's not going to change, I shouldn't say it out in public because it's going to confuse people. But yes, we're working on major changes that's going to actually better the system and make it easier to work the applications and for the customer too. Process improvement project, that was where we've been working with the Organizational Improvement Office from DCA, and they have gone through and worked with our staff to do flow charts of every application process that we have, and they will be providing a report to us in May that will actually show their recommendations on what we can do to better our process. So I have already seen a draft copy, pretty excited about that. It'll be a good kind of guidebook for us to see where we want to move forward with the administrative processes. And we continue to digitize records. Some of you got to see the file room the other day. Currently we're doing about digitizing 240 files a week. We have quite a few thousand, so we're going to continue to do that. And really trying to go green. We are currently with the registration applications, those are being scanned and utilized. Eventually we'll get those online, but the whole goal is to go green. And actually this makes it easier to access the records for the clients because we do occasionally get requests for licensed files, and this is going to make the process way easier. So we're excited about that. We continue to work with the department who's doing some of the scanning for us, so we will continue to work on that project. Diversity and equity training, we are looking for somebody to come in and actually do some diversity and equity training with really having the topic in their gender identity in that. And I know I've been talking to some board members, and we've been looking outside to come up with a good training program that will kind of, it's geared towards to our staff. So it's a little bit different. We found some good trainings out there, but we need to make sure that it kind of complies with what the staff and the kind of employment of government employment. So, but I think we'll have something hopefully in a couple months. So I'll keep working on that. And then you can see the strategic plan update in there. Just to highlight, we keep adding to that. That's going to be a working document. I would check it out every quarter because we're adding when we get new ideas and tasks that we think will help us to achieve those objectives. We'll be putting those in there. And great. If there's any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. And for members of the public, we usually tend to interrupt Steve a lot of times during the report, and which is the right thing to do because it flows the conversation. But today, because of this technical challenge, so we asked Steve to go through the report. And so by here, we are opening the conversation, the discussion. So I hope you took some notes. If there are any questions, you are more than welcome to ask or comments about any aspects of the report that Steve has just shared with us. So at this moment, we're opening to the public. I see that we have members of the public in audience that would like to comment, and then we can go back to the board members as well. So, Ben, if you can introduce yourself in a second.
Thank you. Good morning. Ben Caldwell, LMFT. Just a quick question, Steve, and it might be one that you're tired of hearing. Can you speak to the board's practices and future plans related to the acceptance of digital signatures on applications and related documents? I know that scanned signatures are being accepted at this time, but what about forms that are signed through software like DocuSign, where a supervisor types their signature and it's verified digitally, but then it's presented on the form as sort of a handwriting-ish font? Can you clarify sort of what the BBS does and does not accept on those documents? Thank you.
So our current statement right now, it was put out there on social media the other day. No? Oh, okay. We are accepting, scanned original or any electronic signature. Just it has to be able to be verified somehow, and that's kind of which they verified. If it was scanned and if it was signed and scanned and sent to us, then we'd make sure we'd have to be verified by that supervisor that it was signed by them. So really right now the practice is we are accepting pretty much all signatures. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any who would like to comment, ask questions? I see Dr. Walker and Kelly, and then, okay, we'll go that way. Thank you. Hold on.
Is that my bottom? Do I have that right?
Perfect, yes.
Good?
Yes.
Good. How about this?
Yes.
It's a lot, okay, it's comfortable. I think I can hold it.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
That's okay, I may be here for a while. And again, while you're there, thank you for the board chair report as well. But right now I have questions on our executive officer report. Steve, thank you very kindly for that detailed report. I would like to start, how's that? Okay. Thank you, audience, for your patience as we work through our technical difficulties. We're getting through this. So let's start with the budget report. It's good to hear that we do have a healthy reserve and a healthy budget moving forward. I guess I wanted to connect the budget report with your strategic plan update just briefly. And I guess my question is, given this healthy outlook, is that taking into consideration some of the future projects that you may have, for example, surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, our licensing committee, some projects there and other committees as well that I can't speak to, but are we looking at future expenditures that are related to your strategic plan?
So you can put your phone down a little bit.
Okay.
They can hear you like that. It's only needed when people talking from the other side.
Okay, so this is good.
So you can put it down like that, and they can hear you.
Oh, great.
Okay.
I could probably do that.
Okay.
I'm going to respond.
Or I could ask all my questions, you could take notes and then respond that way. How's that? Okay. Would be efficient and effective? Okay. So that's the first one, if you could respond to later, which is the budget report and the strategic plan of future expenditures related to committee work and things like that. So let's deal with that. My second question is related to, you know what, they're all strategic plan related questions here. And I don't know if you have your plan in front of you, but I'm looking at goal 5. Board effectiveness and board governance. Okay. Again, most of you know that I am a new public board member. Again, Dr. Annette Walker, a public member. So I wasn't here when you drafted or worked on this new strategic plan that was recently approved. So forgive me if I'm asking redundant questions or if I shouldn't be asking the question at all. But when I look at that, goal 5, and do you mind reading that header for transparency?
have to go back and forth with the.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Well, when you get to it, read goal 5, it is related to org effectiveness and board governance. As a board member, board governance is vital to me. It's just, that's where our voice lives and what I'm here to do and represent the best of board governance. And so when I look at what you have proposed below that, I'm not seeing the alignment as my understanding of the definition of board governance. So maybe you can help me understand what you have planned there in place and how that relates to board governance, okay? So we'll come back to that. And then next, I'm looking at goal 6, specifically objective 6.3, when we're looking to increase board engagement, expanding that, if you will. Again, that doesn't align to me, and maybe as a board, we can take that into consideration and see and help define what that really looks like to, again, quote unquote, increase board engagement. Are we talking about this board or a different board? But help me understand that. Okay, and lastly, you referred to diversity and equity training, which I really appreciate. Oftentimes we forget the I in DEI, which is being inclusive, and our board president speaks to that, and he spoke to that today, and I really appreciate him reminding us because we often leave that out. But when we look at D and E, diversity and equity training, I want to make sure that we're not leaving out the I, so maybe you could speak to that and tell me where you see that coming forth for staff as we look forward to bringing some training and around D&I to the staff here. And lastly, if anyone could just share with me, where does our BBS diversity statement live? Do we have one? I Googled, I looked online. Do we have a policy, anything related to D, E, and I, D&I, diversity? I looked and I didn't see it. So where does the Board of Behavioral Sciences diversity statement live? Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. So I think I got all these listed down. On the budget and the strat plan, really it's a matter of how the budget relates to the strat plan is resources, really. I mean, it's additional staffing right now. And so that's one of the part of the kind of tied into the organizational, the governance and stuff is what we're talking about, the governance there. What we're really looking at is the governance of the administrative aspect of the board. How do we, and looking at how we actually operate administratively is the way I was looking at that, is the governance. So with relating the budget to the strat plan is what we have all these, all these plans, all these goals out here. We can achieve some of these with the staff we have. I think one of the big things we're looking at underneath the governance is making sure, do we have the right resources to be able to put this plan in place? So that's one of the things we are looking at is Marlon and I have been looking over the staff, and we recognize there's a lot of goals. There's a lot of projects I want to do. We are realizing, Roseanne, she does a lot of work, but we are realizing that we definitely, the resources we want to get, we need different resources. So that's part of how the budget. We can't. We could work a certain project or we could allocate money, but it's really looking at the resources for that. So, and trying to figure out, all these goals. I don't know. Does that make sense? Kind of, does that? Yeah, or no, I guess you can. Okay. And then the goal governance, that was the 5.0. Let me read that for you. So the goal on that was to, it was goal 5, organizational effectiveness. It's build an excellent organization through proper board governance effective leadership, and responsible management. Like I was saying, is we're looking at ways, how to organize the board administratively. And one of the functions there we didn't really put in a major task. We could actually look at the way that the board operates itself too, with committee ships and stuff, and maybe adding different committees, getting board member participation in that way too. So that's one of the other ways we can look at it. As I said, this is a working document, so that could be something actually I can add. So we can look at that. And when you're talking about the outreach, the 6.3, it looks like I may have actually put those tasks in the wrong area. What we were talking about in that goal that you were mentioning really is reaching out to schools and organizations to get better communication with them. And once again, that's looking at resources. We do outreach currently. One of the things I've have in the future plan, or I keep wanting, is to actually get somebody who's committed strictly to outreach, so that we can kind of look at how we can really improve upon that. So that is something that we are working on in the background. And then, to be honest with you, on the DEI, we don't have a diversity statement. I think it's a good idea. So I think maybe that is something that we could easily bring back to talk about in May, if that sounds good to everyone. So I can work on that. And I think there's a lot of good resources with the department's doing a good job. So really looking at that and the governor's, what the governor has put out there. So I think that's good. Sure. Does that answer, I think? Sure.
Yeah, I'm just going to introduce
it. Okay.
Okay, we have board member Ranasinghe, and then we have Ortega coming next, and then John Sabec. I'll do it. I can move.
So they're going to talk. It's only for us to listen to them. Yeah. I give you to you the microphone for the room.
Steve, this is just a quick statement. I know that there's been a lot of problem solving on Facebook. I wanted to give BBS a shout out, and I just wanted to note that on one of the comments on Facebook, there was a direct problem solving, and the commenter said, Board of Behavioral Sciences, this issue is being resolved. A huge thank you. Whoever is running the Facebook side of stuff, you are awesome! Exclamation point, happy face, heart. There's a huge amount of work being done on Facebook, sometimes within hours, resolving issues, and that's really the credit of the BBS staff. I also wanted to shout out, I really like the example postings, capitalizing on the trends that go with Minority Mental Health Month and Psychotherapy Month, but also pushing those DCA resources like how to verify a licensee and also how to engage a safe mental health practitioner.
Do you want to respond to anything, Steve? No. You're happy? Okay. I had some questions about, well, my first question is, with the reserve, it's right now at 21.3 months. How big will that get? Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Okay, that was one question. Sorry, I was waiting for your answer. And then what are those goals with any additional funding that have we thought about improving the technology inside of BBS? No offense to Breeze, but it's very antiquated and, it's basic, as the millennials would say. And technology saves a lot of money for a lot of companies, and it streamlines a lot of the processes. And maybe there's not necessarily a need for 10 new employees, right? If we can improve the technology side of this and invest there. Do you guys have like a tech officer or operations officer that could focus on that? I was also like looking at, there isn't a bot that kind of, you know, pops up that people can type in a question and then, you know, like they could read the answer before maybe they go to Facebook or make a phone call. So just really looking at what are other effective solutions that other companies are doing, and, you know, mimicking the ones that work. And there was a conversation about the feasibility of the waivers, right? The $60. So like, who says that that's too much? Like, how do we know that people are not willing to pay those $60 to retake the test in that allotted time? Because it is kind of like an emergency, right, situation for people. Maybe they will pay it. So, you know, where did that come from? And my last question is, there's some conversation inside of your plan about DE training. Are you guys going to be working with the DEI committee that the Department of Consumer Affairs just shared? Are you guys working together, or is the BBS doing something separate? And maybe that's where you can also get your DEI statement. So like collaboration versus like we're doing one thing and they're doing another is something I heard. Thank you.
Oh, you were speaking?
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's go through this here. The goal in the reserve, yes, we have a reserve. I think the process for, like I said, we are looking at going through and doing a whole scale review of, we've done the processes and stuff with the OIO, but we're also looking at the staffing and how we would like to see that organized and what we need and what we want, as opposed to what the things we're looking at right now really are, at least on top of my mind, are first of all, making sure we have enough, the right amount of people to do the processing so we can get processing times down, looking at outreach, and looking at somebody possibly for research analysts and stuff to be able to kind of dive into some of the stuff that we're going to really want to be looking at, especially with the exams for the legislative population, to work with HCI and stuff. So when it comes to that reserve, we really can't touch that. But what we can do, though, is when I can make recommendations for a budget change proposal to actually say, you know, we would like to get these staff, and we would like to be, you know, we'd like our budget to have allocated this amount of money, which then would kind of reduce our reserves. So, back on? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Oh, we have 3 online. So, okay. So I hope that mentions kind of reserve. We can, so, sorry about that. If you talk to my staff, you can tell I am always talking about technology and how we can better. And there's a whole bunch of ideas that we have currently that we're looking at and kind of wanting to reach out and look at. I mean, I'm sorry to hear Breeze is antiquated. We're going to keep updating for us, because right now to get a whole system like that would cost millions of dollars. So we're definitely looking at putting more applications online on Breeze and then making improvements on that. The DCA Breeze team is really great at working with us on making changes and kind of updating that system. Beyond that, we also have been having discussions to possibly get some sort of technology to make it easier for the supervised applicants to send in their supervised sheets, and trying to figure out ways that we can maybe instead of utilizing paper for that, because right now that's what we utilize is paper to make sure we know what their supervised hours are, is trying to find a solution to that that's an electronic where it would actually link straight to our Bree system and we can easily evaluate it that way. So we are consistently looking for that. The budget-wise, I think for the technology issues, I mean, if we came upon a solution that would be something that we want to pursue, then we would still have to pursue we would have to pursue possibly a budget change proposal because it could be a pretty extensive fee, but it can be done. So if we if we did find like an outside resource that could develop something in the software and we really wanted to go for it, we could do that. So I'm keeping my mind, I keep looking at those and we have the conversations with staff. I'm really, like you said, the bot, I've talked about the bots before. They're not sometimes they've gotten feedback that it's not the best, but looking at ways too, like the FAQs, I know there's certain, I hate to say the word AI because it's like topic now, but AI, some kind of software that would help us to, realize what the main questions are and how to answer them and respond to them. So we're looking at that. DEI, definitely will take direction from work with DCA. In fact, we have a representative on the DEI committee right there. So yes, he's volunteered for that. So, but yeah, we'll definitely take the lead and work with DCA and seeing what they do. So I hope that answers your question. Sorry. Okay.
John Sobek, LMFT. I want to, if you give me a head nod to make sure I heard this correctly, and I'll acknowledge that I got a head nod from you. You had mentioned there was looking at working with ASWB to start managing more of the registrant population. Did I hear that correctly? You had.
I need this information for my question.
No, I talk about big ideas and stuff too. So first of all, this is something that we haven't really reached out to. What we're talking about is currently right now we manage all the exam eligibilities, and our transfer of that eligibility is done through Breeze over to ASWB. What we are realizing that we would think it would be better if we had the organizations like ASWB, NVCC, all the clinical exam people that we work with. Basically, what we do is we approve the person for the exam, information goes over to them, and they manage it by saying, oh, this person can take the exam every 90 days. They only have a year to take the exam. We will re-up because currently we do that in our system, which works fine, but there's a benefit to doing that, for having them possibly monitor those eligibilities. That's it.
For those who aren't witnessing, this phone is sliding across the counters for those interesting sounds you may have just heard. I think part of my question is in that process, and you had mentioned one of the things about not taking them up on the other process was the $60 fee. When we consider handing over other aspects to them, will those be things where they will be billing back to us for you are managing this system and doing this thing, or will they then be charging additional fees to the registrants, and can we make sure and be on top of that in the discussion? And then I have a couple more, so right away. Or do you want to answer this one?
No, I think when we originally started up the contract, that was where it was originally going to go. We are looking at managing those eligibilities. I'm not sure if it would actually cost. I would have to definitely, but definitely if we look at that, we can bring that to the board. And then the $60 fee, I think what we're looking at is currently our applicants are paying it's a pretty substantial fee. And I think putting that out there as another $60 fee, not everyone can afford that. I don't know if it's kind of looking at it in an equitable manner too. That was some of the considerations. But
And I do want to support you in examining any of those additional fees. As this board knows, anytime we're adding on CEU costs, fee costs, anything like that, I think we always need to include the diversity of our populations and differing socioeconomic status and how that can become a barrier to licensure. A simple $60 fee may not be a simple $60 fee to someone. And I think we really need to always keep track of that as we're trying to increase our licensees and our registrants. I think those costs can often be a barrier to wanting to move into this profession. Moving on to a couple of different questions. We talked about the staffing challenges. I've been here about 3.5 years now. It seems to be an ongoing issue. What's going on? We need to really examine why we're not able to find ways to keep employees staying with us. And I understand advancement and retirement. I'm just going to speak openly. Yesterday, for the first time, many of us on the board here took a tour of the offices of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. And it was intriguing because it feels as if what we are doing to create staff environment and to create staff maybe retention doesn't seem to be happening in the actual spaces upstairs. I'm going to be blunt. It's a very sad space up there. And when you look at the size of cubicles, when you look at the way people are parsed out into the places where teams that might need to be together aren't together, where management is these big, beautiful windowed office on the exterior, and yet the people who are handling the day-to-day thing are in these really dark, very small internal cubicles. All of these things are part of staff retention. These are things that can be managed on a pretty basic level. And I just want to encourage that is that part of what we're experiencing in this idea that in all the time I've been here, every time we talk, oh, we're short-staffed, oh, we're short-staffed, oh, we're short-staffed, which is not just your EO experience, but our previous EO as well, too. That short-staffing seriously affects our ability to act in a timely manner. Whether it's Roseanne having someone who's working with her to help the idea of researching and creating legislation much more easily, whether it's someone who has put their thing in and they're waiting. We sit here and look at a chart that says, oh, our days have gone up for responses for you to be able to take your exam. That's not a good thing, and it's not a good thing if you're the person waiting for those days. So I would encourage that we actually need to look at the environment that we're creating for staff and how do we build this energy back up again. You mentioned that the licensee population grows by 1% kind of on an annual or quarterly basis, and that's the normal thing. Is there growth in staff to mirror that? So are we falling behind staff-wise as we're watching our licensures increase? And are we always trying to play catch-up? And I think that's a challenge. And then also, too, in the anticipation of we're coming up into graduation period. So if we walk into graduation period, which is coming up in May, June, and we're seeing that we're short-staffed, then those days are going to fall they're going to grow bigger. And we're going to have people sitting out there in their homes checking every day on Breeze to see if they've been approved and not seeing it happen. And I think these are things that are really the nuts and bolts of what we do. I understand, like, there's all these big, beautiful things, and I'm one of the leaders of, like, yes, we need to do all these grand things. But at a basic level, I want to encourage you to look at the internal structure of how we're doing this work, because something has not been working for quite a long time. Okay? Going on. Can we check that within the state or the DCA for our social media stuff, do they have existing graphics on either ethnic or culturally specific months? I know there's been some conversation about that we in our media creation might not be able to handle every single month that comes up, but perhaps there is already material existing that we can then use to include in our reach outs, okay? I know a lot of state-based stuff sits out there. Sometimes for things like Black History Month, they'll actually have like daily releases about powerful figures in the state of California. I think if that material exists, we might want to look at it to include it in our growth of our social media. Apparently, this is my pushing Steve conversation today. I'd like to ask you to actually not come back in May and talk about creating a draft of our EDIA. I'd like to say if you come back with a draft of an EDIA, that we can see the action that's being taken and the language that you're starting to create with the help of DCA and the state. So we're actually looking at something in May, not coming back in May and talking about making it happen. Okay? Those are my thoughts.
See if I can respond. Let me go backwards. So the first one, yeah, I can bring something back in May so we can look at the draft version. The graphics on the cultural specific months are kind of like the outreach on that. DCA has been doing a fantastic job of giving the boards like dockets on certain certain events during the year. So we definitely capitalize on those. And if they do sponsor something like, we'll always tag on to stuff that they sponsor. But they're really good at working on, I think we can take a little, we've been taking, proactive on that, is looking at those and how, and kind of giving them an idea of, hey, can we get some graphics on that and looking at that. So, I mean, my goal is eventually, if we have staff resources, enough time, is to do the post. I think the posting is a good start, directing towards resources, but then maybe eventually we can also create some of our own resources and even like videos or something bigger. That definitely takes resources. Staffing and internal structure, I can tell you that Marlon and I have daily conversations on how to, what I'm considering calling, not necessarily, I don't want to scare staff, reorganizing the whole, how we operate. And that's part of the OIO too, the Organizational Improvement Office that we looked at. So it's a very big concern of mine. I want to make sure that we are operating now as efficiently and as good as possible, and that staff is happy. I mean, and that we're not overworking them. Currently right now, we have an excellent staff, and I know they're very committed to the job. I can happily say, though, I would really have concerns if I started seeing people leave for what I call a lateral position. But we never see people leave for a lateral position, and we even actually see people come back. We have a boomerang effect with our organization. That being said, and Andrea's a boomerang. There you go. 3 times she's been back to us. So, but realizing that, definitely, I have been looking at the staffing, and I want to make sure that currently, right now, especially with the licensed groups and stuff, they are really working hard. So we do need the resources, and I am working on that. As for the environment, the cubicles are all kind of, that's a state standard cubicle. And actually, but definitely I can see the break room, looking at that with the tour yesterday, we need to put something in there. Additionally, though, we also are looking at, we definitely take, we want to, after the COVID experience, we're starting to try to get back as a team, to get that collaboration. So one of the things that we are doing now is all staff meetings. We have a board-wide staff meeting after every board meeting. We're having that in person. Everyone's going to be in person with the group. We're trying to kind of inspire that a little bit more. So yeah, these are all things. I mean, I think I am thinking about these, and we are working towards a lot of what you're speaking to. So.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I just want to share something because definitely my fellow board member, John Slavak, spoke to it. I think we need to remind ourselves that context what we're operating, which is the state of California, and the fact that public services in general always has to compete with the private, always, all the time. And we're losing people. This is not a BBS thing. We are losing teachers. We're losing educators. We're losing people that are doing good in the community, like our staff, not because there is a problem at the leadership per se in the particular environment, but because of the competition of public service versus private, which we struggle with over and over. Because every time we're trying to raise the budget, guess what? People vote against us. So this conversation, I think, it falls into a context, and I don't mean to disregard, my fellow board member concerns. I just thought it wouldn't be fair to. I've seen challenges with the staff, but I see in a lot of public board meetings, in a public office, and this is recurrent. People don't even want to run for elections anymore because they get the hate from people once you're exposed to the public. So I just want to put a context. And not that the DCA or the BBS needs my, speech of defense, but it's more about understanding that it's a greater competition out there, and the fact that we are having a hard time to retain people is more to do with the lack of support for public service versus the environment where people work in. And like I said, I see school board meetings, and we have the same issues all the time, that people dedicate their lives to serve the public, and they're not treated with respect. So sometimes it's also getting the hate from the public when you answer their call. So it's not just the income stream, but it's the whole package. So I just want to share that because I felt uneasy about that comment, more because of the context and not where obviously they are coming from. But I just want to share a note of respect for our public servant. So if there are any comments or Ortega, yes, sure. I'm going to come to you. Yes.
I guess what came to mind after you spoke, Max, is I think overall it's a time for innovation, creativity, thinking outside of the box, so that people feel called to come, right, and apply here, for there to be, for us to use the resources, however big or small, in the most effective ways. And I think, this is a great conversation so that we can get out of whatever worked before is not necessarily working today, and it's just going to just require more creativity, is what I'm hearing. And this is Abigail Ortega, and John is now going to speak.
John Sovek, LMFT. I want to make sure that in my languaging, I absolutely respect the work that every single person in that office is doing. It is amazing. It is hard, especially knowing that you are understaffed. My other response too is that this combination between public service and private work. Oftentimes people move into the private sector, and it's not just based on money. It's based on a lot of key elements that have to do with work environment. And I'm just encouraging that this could be something to look at to try and find a way to build a robust staff, to keep encouraging the staff that you have to want to build and bring in other people and other entities and ideas so that we are, as Ms. Ortega was saying, innovating rather than just looking at things the way they are. So that comment was all made with respect to the staff that works so hard. I do recognize that. And I'm saying that there is more that we could potentially do to build an even more robust staff, to create a place where people are like, oh my God, the BBS has an opening, can we go apply for them? Versus just well, there's one, there's the salary, let's go look. Because I want to be honest with you, if I were an interviewee and I came into that office space, I would have to reconsider if that was actually a place that I physically wanted to work. And I would just want to encourage you to understand that. And I like the idea that you're looking at doing team building. You're looking at creating interactions, like host a board meeting for your staff to talk about what was discussed here. I think that's incredibly powerful, because the more you empower every single staff member that's up there, because they're amazing people. We met a bunch of them yesterday. The more you empower them, I would suggest the more internal growth you're going to see in your organization. And the more people are going to want to say, this is a gold standard of where I want to work in public service.
No, I hear what you're saying. it's really getting people to apply for civil servant positions, though, which is really, and actually we've experienced, it's been very tough to even get people to apply. So I think it's making that attractive. And I think the state is doing stuff to make it easier for finding jobs. But there is something we can, I mean, for getting people to apply for us, there are things we can look at. I mean, one of the things we do operate on is we do a virtual, which doesn't help with collaboration, but we do offer, telecommute, which is a very big, I think that is a very big carrot on the end of the stick for people that are considering civil service. That's the thing, is we can only hire people that are on a list. We can't go out and actually recruit people. We can encourage our friends to apply to a list, but yes, it has to go through the whole administrative state process. So that's kind of, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. So, Kelly.
Okay, so I know to see if there are any other comments, and then we have to open to the public. We haven't gone out with our moderator, so I'm looking around the room, people that are present here. Okay, moderator, if you could please open to the public and see if there are any comments to the EO report today. Thank you.
Certainly. And as a reminder, if you had your hand raised, I only see one person currently, so if you click it multiple times, it will lower and then raise again, and you'll lose your place in line. So if you would like to make a comment on any element of the executive officer's report, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or raise your hand by clicking the hand icon. We have a first comment request from Rebecca Gonzalez. Rebecca, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning. And you're unmuted.
Great. Thank you. This is Rebecca Gonzalez with the National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. I hope I'm not echoing because I hear an echo. But I want to thank the board for this discussion on this issue item, and I also want to state our continuing concern about bias in the ASWB exam and its inability to really measure competence. But in the interim, I really hope the 90-day waiver issue can be worked out, and I appreciate Board Member Slavic's comments about the $60 fee and what a hardship that would be, especially to BIPOC communities or low-income communities. But I also had questions, or I wasn't sure how candidates who had failed the exam, who may want to use a 90-day waiver, if they are notified. Are they notified by the board? Are they notified by the ASWB? I realize that this might not be in place right now, but I wondered how that notice to test takers happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca Gonzalez. Moderator, if there are any other comments of speakers?
We had a typed in comment from someone who is no longer in the meeting. I can either read it aloud or email it to staff.
You can read it out if it's a concise comment. It's not too long.
Certainly. The comment from was someone logged in as Trina W. And the comment is, it is frustrating enough to wait the 3 months to be approved, but it's getting really difficult to have any trust in the BBS when you get approved for the exam, but find out that you still can't schedule for the exam due to BBS not processing name changes, which was included in the LCSW application per the application's instructions. It has also been difficult to reach anyone, including the evaluator, BBS cashiering, etc. What is the plan to improve this? We just want to be fully licensed. And I do not see any other requests for public comment. If anyone else has a comment, let's see, Rebecca Gonzalez has raised her hand again. Rebecca, I'm going to send you a request to unmute and we'll start your 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, that must have been a mistake.
Oh, all right. There we go. So I believe we are finished with public comments. Shall I close that feature?
For the help. And we are back on still on the agenda item of the executive officer report. If there are not any other comments, I would like to close this report and taking a break right now for about 10 minutes. Maybe actually 15 minutes, it's 10:45. We can resume at 11 a.m. And the next agenda item will not be introduced today. It was the agenda item 16, presentation by board staff regarding legislative process. We decided to postpone the agenda item to the next board meeting. It was not an urgent matter. It's a process that it's a recurring educational moment that we do every other year at the board to share with our board members and the audience the process of the legislative process and the steps that a bill takes to become effective and so forth. Given the technical challenges today, we're trying to reduce the time on going back and forth with the audience. So we are moving the agenda item. So we will be resuming at 11 a.m. today to start with item 17 in the agenda. Thank you all. Thanks. Yeah, wonderful. I'm not going to tell you why. I had the mute on. It happened, even on the phone. After the moment of shame, we are resuming. The Board of Behavioral Science today is February 3rd. It's 11:05. My name is Max Disposti. I'm the board chair. As a reminder to the public and the audience, item number 16 of the agenda item, the agenda item for today is being removed and postponed. We're moving to agenda item 17, which Roseanne will introduce. It's a discussion and possible recommendation regarding amendments to the board's temporary practice allowances for bill proposal AB 232. Believe, Roseanne, this is your time. Thank you so much. I'll get to you and give you the phone. Oh, Christina.
Thank you very much. Roseanne Helms, Legislative Manager for the board. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. So the board at the November meeting approved a bill proposal, and it has been introduced now as AB 232. The author is Assemblymember Aguiar Curry. And what this bill proposal does is it allows a 30-day temporary practice allowance to qualifying therapists who are licensed in another state whose client is visiting California or is in the process of moving here so that they can have continuity of care with their therapist. They have to meet certain requirements. The licensee has to have a current active unrestricted license in the other state, and they can only work for 30 consecutive days in a calendar year. The client needs to be located in California, and the client must have been the licensee's client immediately before the client traveled to California. The therapist needs to inform the client of the limited time frame of their services, provide their license information, and provide the board's website address since we're the regulating entity in California. And then prior to providing services, the therapist must provide the board with specified information about their license, identity, and contact information. The proposal also includes a sunset date that aligns with the board's 2026 sunset date, and that's just to make sure that in case there's any adjustments that need to be made to the law after the implementation, that we can do that. So what happens when the board approves language for a bill proposal, it gets submitted to Legislative Council, which is the Legislative Legal Counsel, and then they draft the official text of the bill, and they kind of make sure that legally everything that they look for continuity in legislation looks good. So sometimes they have some recommendations, and this time we got a really thorough, really good Leg Counsel that made some really helpful recommendations, but they were more substantive changes in nature, and so for substantive changes, we need to get the approval of the board before we do go ahead and make those. So there's a couple of different substantive changes that they recommended, and those can be found in attachment. Well, first of all, I should say attachment A is the language that the board approved at the November meeting of the bill text. And then attachment B is how Legislative Council drafted and introduced the bill with some minor changes. And then attachment C is some additional changes that they also recommended. So I want to focus first on the language in attachment B, which is what Legislative Council drafted. Most of those changes are pretty minor and technical, but I just want to point out the changes for full disclosure to everybody. They made some changes to the sections of each practice act, and so there was basically some wording changes and rearrangement. If you look at section 4980.11 and attachment B, let me get to that page really quick so I can look along with you. So at the beginning of the very first sentence in subsection A, they added a notwithstanding section 4980. So that's a little bit different drafting than we did before. In that same paragraph where it talks about a marriage and family therapist providing marriage and family services in this state, previously we used the word offering. They thought that it was better to use providing. And then there was a change, the requirement, the client is a client of the person, it's subsection 4, is a client of the person and was the person's client immediately before the client. We had originally said is located in California. They wanted to say became located in California. And then there was a lot of instances where we referred to the therapist as they, and they wanted to say the person. So just some really technical changes, but arguably someone could argue that they're not substantive, so we want to make sure our bases are all covered. So that's the language in attachment B that we want you to consider today. And then they also went through and looked at some of our other Practice Act sections that are roughly related to the amendments we're making, where some of the underlying requirements in our law is that require somebody to have a license to practice in California. And they looked at a couple of these sections, which are really old and have been in place for many, many years, and they recommended us some cleanup that's not technical in nature. And that's shown in attachment C. So if, like, for instance, Business and Professions Code section 4980, they suggested that we bring that into the bill. That's the section of law that requires a license to be issued to engage in the practice of marriage and family therapy. And they noted that 4980 states that somebody can engage in the practice of marriage and family therapy if they hold a valid license of a marriage and family therapist. And they pointed out that technically that language should say a valid license in marriage family therapy pursuant to this chapter. And that's how they draft things now, and so that's what they recommended. And I think that is important because you need to make sure that it's a California marriage and family therapy license, not another state's marriage and family therapy license. So very basic, but I think a good cleanup that we should make. Also in the MFT law in section 4980.30, there's a reference in that section which also gives authority to practice with an issued license from the board. It talks about needing to have a license from the board to be obtained in order to practice and to advertise. And they pointed out that technically, legally, stating practice and advertise could imply that both actions need to be taking place together to be prohibited. So kind of a really technical legal loophole. So I appreciate that we got a really good Ledge Council that was willing to take a look at this and make these suggestions. And I think that that's a really good, important point. Maybe in the previous times, many, many years ago when these were drafted, they weren't drafted that precisely, but now they are. And then finally, they noted that unlike our other practice acts, the LSCSW Practice Act does not have a definitions section. It has a couple of definitions scattered throughout, but we don't have a definition section like we do for LMFT and LPCC. And that's because the LCSW law has kind of evolved differently. It's kind of our oldest practice act. It's written a little bit different based on the national standards for social workers, but we kind of, I agreed that a definition section at the beginning would be helpful. And the Ledge Council suggested that we define the Board of Behavioral Sciences. When we use the word board, we should state there that the board equals Board of Behavioral, or means Board of Behavioral Sciences. something really basic, but something that they felt was important. And I agree with them that is important to do. And we thought that if we added that to section 499.1.2, which has one definition right now and is at the beginning of the Practice Act, then in the future, as we do omnibus bills, we want to move other definitions there, that we might be able to do that if we find it appropriate in the future. And then also they noted that that the beginning of the LCSW Practice Act, which begins with 4991 of the Business and Professions Code, should have a label that says Article 1 General Provisions. So they suggested that. So that's just some cleanup things that I think are really good points that should be made. So we brought this to the Policy and Advocacy Committee in January, and the committee recommended that the board approve the language shown in attachments B and C for use in its temporary practice allowance bill proposal, which is AB 232. So the proposed motion that's on the floor after discussion and any changes, so any suggested changes would be to direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes to the language in attachment B and C, and direct staff or direct the board to approve the bill's current language, attachment B, and amend in the changes shown in attachment B and C into AB 232.
Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank you, Roseanne. At this point, we can open the discussion on the board, and if there are any questions or any observations, and this was also the recommendation of the Policy Advocacy Committee as well. Yes, Chris Jones.
Hi, Chris Jones, LEP member. I can't remember if we had this discussion before, Roseanne, so please forgive me because I'm old. I know that LEPs aren't included in this bill, and there are, because only one state in the union, other than us, Massachusetts, holds the LEP license. So I guess my only concern is that, should someone from Massachusetts who's being seen by an LEP move to California, they wouldn't be included in this and be able to be seen by their provider. Is there a way for us to be, added into this bill?
I think that is definitely possible in the future. I think that when we looked at the LEP Massachusetts, there was some differences. So I think we would need to do some extra kind of studying of that. At the time, we had kind of decided not to, but if that's something that we would like to do going forward, we can definitely do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris Jones. Any other questions from the board? Any questions or requests for clarification or comments? Otherwise, I would like to open to the members of the public that they are present here. If there are any questions about the bill proposal, and what I would like to do, Rosanna, if it's okay with you, I will actually make a motion that states the approval of the including amendment or amendment B, I believe.
The language in attachment B and amend the language in attachment B and make it a non-substantive and
not substantive changes to the amendment, yes, as presented. So I would like to make a motion. If there are any other board members who would like to second before I go out to the public for possible other comments. Justin Haft is seconding the motion. Moderator, if we can open to the public and see if there are any comments, please. Thank you.
Certainly. If anyone has a comment on the bill proposal or the motion, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. And we have a request for comment from someone logged in as Ann Tren Yen from Canft. Ann, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes. You're unmuted.
I'm Tran Lin with the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. CAMF is in support of the proposed changes and AB 232. We are in support of being on the front lines of improving license portability across the nation. With California leading the way, we are hopeful that other states will follow suit. We do anticipate that there may be implementation issues that will likely arise, and we would like to hear from the BBS on how professional associations like CAMFT can help to bring those implementation issues to the BBS to be resolved. Thank you so much.
And I do not see any other requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, we can close, and then I believe our Roseanne would like to comment on that. Thank you.
I just wanted to respond to Anne's comment. Yes, we've written the language pretty tight. There's a few things we don't know. We don't know how many people are going to utilize this. We know that we get a lot of questions. So we want the idea is to do a 2-year implementation. And then if there's any adjustments that need to be made, if any issues come up, then we'll do that. And yes, we will definitely keep the associations informed on how, if they are willing, they could help us get the word out. I'm sure we'll get some questions. We're bringing in the plan is to bring in a staff person to answer those questions. So yes, we do plan to work closely with the associations. We want to hear from them if any issues come up or any concerns, and then we can work together to address those.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, thank you, Roseanne, for the clarification. I think then we have a motion stand. I moved and second by Justin Huff. If there are any other comments from members of the board, I think we can call the vote. And Christine, let's try this.
Dr. Annette Walker?
Yes.
Oh my God. Yes. Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Justin Huff?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Max Desposi?
Yes.
John Sovic?
Yes.
Abigail Ortega?
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
Ross Ehrlich?
Yes.
We have a quorum. I'm sorry, motion carries.
And we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Motion carries. We're now moving to agenda item 18, which is the telehealth committee's update. Roseanne again will introduce us to the update.
Yes, so our board's telehealth committee held its most recent meeting on December 8th of this past year, 2022. And so the purpose of that committee, we've been meeting for a couple of years now to really look at the situation with telehealth and determine if any of the board statutes and regulations related to that need to be updated or clarified. So we've done a lot of work in that committee so far, and the work is continuing. Last meeting, we discussed online-only therapy platforms and alternative modes of therapy. We're going to be doing a survey of licensees that have worked in those settings to get some more feedback. We discussed possible revisions to the board statutes and statutes that require a physical display of a license or registration and how to account for telehealth practice in that. And then we also continued work, we're working on with some subject matter experts on the creation of a telehealth best practices document. So that's where what the committee was discussing at the last meeting, and is going to move forward with some more discussion at the next meeting. Some proposed amendments that previously were developed by the telehealth committee are either currently running as a bill proposal or recently signed into law. So that's the AB 232, which we just talked about, the temporary practice allowance for out-of-state licensees with visiting clients. That is our current bill proposal that came out of the telehealth committee. Also, AB 1758, which was signed into law last year to permit supervision via video conferencing, came out of the telehealth committee. The requirement for applicants and for licensure and current licensees to complete a 3-hour baseline training of coursework or coursework in the provision of mental health services via telehealth as a one-time requirement became law via AB 1759 last year. That came out of the committee, and also we did some clarifications that certain pre-licensees like associates and trainees can provide services via telehealth. That was also signed into law via AB 1759 last year. So we've done a lot of work on that committee. We've got some more work to go, and our next committee meeting will be held on March 16th of next month.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Oh. Thank you, Roseanne. Are there any questions or comments from the board members or members of the public? None to be seen. Moderator, if you could please open to the public via WebEx and see if there are any comments about items 18, telehealth committee update.
Certainly, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to ask to be recognized by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can use *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you so much, moderator. We are moving now to item 19, which is the licensing committee update, also led by Roseanne.
All right. So our other special committee that we have right now, our licensing committee, held its most recent meeting on January 13th of this past month. And the purpose of the licensing committee is to discuss many in-depth, really technical topics related to improving the licensing process. So previously, some of the things that the licensing committee has done, it developed a successful legislative proposal to delete the requirement that renewing registrants with a failing law and ethics exam or score must complete a 12-hour California law and ethics course. Instead, this was replaced with a 3-hour California law and ethics course required for all renewing registrants. So that was signed into law via AB 1759. At the past meeting, this past January, the committee discussed in depth the creation of a workforce development action plan. So it's going to be moving forward with continuing to create that document in the upcoming months. And they also discussed the practices of pastoral counseling and life coaching, and discussed the creation of a consumer outreach document to explain the board's regulated professions to the public in a more concise manner. And the next licensing committee meeting will be held on April 14th.
Perfect. Thank you, Roseanne. And as always, any public comments, any board comments on the updates? Yes, Susan. You still have to do this. No special trick yet.
Okay. Hi, Susan Freeman, public member. I am on the licensing committee, and we did have a discussion of life coaches. But I'm just wondering, among the whole board, what do people think? Because it's a complicated subject.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. For everyone, Susan was just reflecting a conversation that was on the licensing around life coaches. Yes, and I don't believe was actually because they are not licensed, they don't fall under our jurisdictions. But if there are any board members that would like to make a comment around that, or any concerns, or any,
I think it's not agendized, so we can't.
It's really not falling into the agenda. Yeah. It's because the specific doesn't fall into the agenda items or discussions. So it's risky because we are opening a total different, it's risky just for that reason, not because of others. So but also people that can join the licensing committee conversation that can definitely in that space bring that concern, whatever that is, and testimony so that we can discuss fully in that context. I hope that helps you, Susan. Any other comments from the board? Otherwise, we are asking to the members of the public if there are any comments. Doesn't appear to be. Moderator, if you could please open to see if there are any comments on the licensing committee updates from our audience.
Certainly. If anyone has any questions or comments about the licensing committee update, you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And our calling users can use *3 to raise their hands. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. Are there any comments on the licensing committee report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, moderator. Okay, we're moving on in agenda item 20, which is the updates on board sponsor and monitor legislations. This is when Roseanne gives an update about everything that's going on about our past discussions on previous bills or current bills. And Roseanne, thank you.
Thank you, Max. So the legislative session is just kicking off, so we're getting underway. We're monitoring a lot of bills that are getting introduced this month. The deadline to introduce bills is February 17th, and so we expect a lot more bills to be introduced in the upcoming weeks. So we're taking a look at all of those, and then there'll be another round of amendments about 30 days after they're all introduced. So it's kind of an ever-evolving situation. We'll have a big discussion about legislation and bills in May. But our two bills for right now, we have AB 232 introduced, which we've already talked about, our temporary practice allowance. So we're going to be moving forward with some amendments to that and then having it move through the process, hopefully. And then we're also pursuing an omnibus bill proposal as part of Senate Business and Professions cleanup bill that they do every year. That hasn't been introduced yet, but we've turned in the language that the board approved for a couple of minor technical changes. The board approved that in November, so we've turned that in. We're working with them on that, and so that is the legislative update.
Thank you again, Roseanne. And as always, just a round-up check-in and making sure that there are not questions about any other legislative that were not, any questions? Yes, otherwise I'm opening agenda and I'm not even playing. Any questions from the board? I think we're good. We're good. Any questions from members of the audience? None, thank you. And moderator, again, if we can open to the public to see if there are any questions, again, on agenda item 20 in regards to the update on board sponsors and monitor legislation.
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you've got a comment on the legislation update, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our calling users can use *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Are there any comments on legislation? I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Okay, and now we're moving to item 21, updates on board rulemaking proposal. I believe Christy Berger is doing the introductions. Moderator, if you could please promote her to our panel so she will be able to introduce herself and the agenda item.
I believe I'm already good. I'm all set. If you can hear me.
Oh. Yes, we can. Can you?
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. Christy Berger, regulatory analyst for the board. So I'm going to go over our current rulemaking proposals This one, I did report on at the November board meeting. The continuing education and additional training requirements was approved by the Office of Administrative Law. But since it doesn't take effect until July 1st, 2023, I just wanted a reminder that it is coming, and we've been working on implementation. We will be posting FAQs and such here in the next couple of months. The examination waiting periods, professional corporations and accrediting agencies, equivalent degrees, that package, which made some minor and technical changes, has been approved as well by the Office of Administrative Law. It takes effect April 1st, 2023. And then our enforcement process regulations, which we report on here. We don't usually report on regulations that haven't been approved by the board yet. But these were back in 2015, but they had to be put on hold because of some legislation. So it's kind of remained on our update report since that time. So now that legislation took effect and we've been able to, work with staff on what changes we wanted, it's now under the review by the Policy and Advocacy Committee. And it's taking some time to get through there, but we're hoping to have that in front of the board, possibly at the next possibly, I think, July or August. So, but that's all I had.
Out there with a WebEx, maybe we can. I know I did. Oh. I can multitask, Sid. After 2 days, I got the way. Sorry, moderator, if we can actually, since we're open to the web, if we could see if there are any comments from the audience. And then we're coming back into the public here and our board members. Any comments around item 21 on board rulemaking proposals?
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A. If anyone would like to make a comment, they can look for the question mark, click on that, type the word comment and click send, or anyone may also raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to speak. And our calling user can use *3 to raise their hand. And I see no requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Okay, wonderful. Yes, we can close. And here in Sacramento, my fellow board member, there are any comments about the agenda items that Christy Berger just introduced on item 21? Any comments? Members of the public, any comments? No? Okay, that will conclude the agenda item, and we are actually now moving, and thank you, Roseanne, thank you, Christy, for all your hard work on this. We always appreciate you keeping us on the loop. We're moving to agenda item 22, which is suggestion for future agenda item. This is for not public comments. This is for suggestion for future agenda items. Usually members of the public or members of the board are expressing their suggestions at this point, if there are any. So starting from the member of the board, any suggestion for future agenda items? Yes, Ortega? Abigail? Hold on.
Thank you so much. I would love to see how we can look at maybe prioritize like all the barriers for people to get licensed, and just kind of maybe look at a hierarchy of how we can tackle them, because it feels like it's like all these fires and we're like trying to like put them out. If we can structure them and then create a plan to prioritize, like, because I'm hearing a lot of the public asking about that when there's public commentary, so I know that's top of mind out in the public. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Abigail. Are there any other suggestions for agenda items, for future agenda items from members of the board? Susan?
Hi, Susan Friedman, public member. I'm wondering if we can talk about whether it is our responsibility somewhere, or whether we need to talk about whose responsibility it is to be out there talking to various schools, et cetera, as we talked about young people who are just beginning to decide what they want to do in life, to be talking about getting more therapists in the state of California. I mean, I don't know whose responsibility that is since we're licensing, but it might be something that we could think about because we know there is a crisis. We can't close our eyes to that. We can't just be saying, oh, well, we just license people. There is a crisis, and the crisis very often is much more in the area of public health, mental health. In other words, the people who actually can't go to a private therapist, but must depend on the Department of Mental Health for getting help in all the counties in California. So I'm wondering if that's a subject that we should be discussing, or we should send it off to somebody else. I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Susan Freeman. I know our EO took note of that. Any other comments? Oh, Kelly Ranasinghe, I'll come to you.
I want to amplify what Board Member Friedman and Board Member Ortega have said. And in the past, the board has viewed our mission very conservatively, which is to protect and serve Californians by setting, communicating, and enforcing standards for safe and competent mental health practice. And so in looking at our mission and viewing it broadly, protecting and serving Californians by communicating safe and competent mental health practice. Part of safe and competent mental health practice is ensuring that Californians have enough licensees and mental health practitioners of a diverse background to maintain competent mental health practice for all Californians. Viewing the mandate of the board broadly, I believe it is within our mandate to speak and communicate about these issues. So I would amplify what Board Member Ortega and Board Member Friedman has said. I believe it is within our purview, perhaps not going out and looking and recruiting for licensees, but certainly it is within our mission to speak about the aspects of that mission.
Thank you, Board Member Kelly Ranasinghe. I believe I want to make sure we don't have anyone else here on the board. Any comments or suggestions, excuse me, not comments, suggestion for future agenda items from members of the public here? Okay, moderator, if you can please open to the public via WebEx to see if there are any suggestions for future agenda items.
Certainly, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. People can look for the question mark icon, hit that, type comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand. And we do have a suggestion from someone at calling user 10. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you can press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes. You're unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. My name is Joseph Fisher. I've been in contact with the board regarding the 6-year rule. I want to preface my comment by saying that I have not listened to the proceedings this morning, but I did want to just to communicate to the board that I am still unable to work in California, due to the 6-year rule that has disallowed me from working in a private practice because I applied for an ASW license more than 6 years ago, never used that license for any purpose, never was employed with it, never accrued clinical hours or renewed that.
This is the board chair. I apologize. We do have public comments for items not on the agenda. You're more than welcome to comment too. So if you stay another minute, you'll be able to. This is the suggestions for future agenda items. So we're asking the public at this point if they have any suggestion for future agenda items. For any other comments, you're more than welcome to express those, but at the next agenda item. Otherwise, they cannot even be recorded as official because of that. So I want to make sure that your comment doesn't go, they recorded in the proper agenda item. So moderator, if there are any, thank you. So any other comments in regards to suggestion for future agenda items?
I do not see any other requests for comment at this time.
Thank you. Then we can close that and we'll get back to you, sir. The next one. We're moving agenda item number 23rd, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. This is the time where members of the public, so members of the board, can speak to any issues or concerns of sharing anything, knowing that this will not be addressed by the board. It will not be a conversation had by the board because it's just a public comment session. So starting from my fellow board members, if there are any comments that you would like to introduce right now at this public comments for items not in the agenda. Okay, members of the public, the audience here in Sacramento, if you have any comments, we're good. And at this point, moderator, if you can please open to the public. And if the person who was speaking before is willing to readdress the audience, that would be great. And to see if there is anyone else as well.
Exactly. If there are additional comments, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send or raise your hand. And we will return to calling user 10. I'll send you your request to unmute your microphone and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello, this is Joseph Fisher again. I would like to clarify, first of all, that the purpose of my speaking today is to add an agenda item to a future meeting, and I was not afforded the ability to do that just a moment ago. So I would like the issue of the 6-year rule addressed in a future meeting. That's the purpose of me making a comment. Specifically because the issue was addressed in a previous meeting in mid or late 2022. I can't recall the date. However, the discussion, despite I forget the woman's name who advises the board regarding these issues and prepares materials, bringing up that there are various people affected by the 6-year rule that are not intended to be affected by it, such as people who have chronic illness, people who are disabled or who care for people who have chronic illness, that they as a result of the 6-year rule, they may need to leave the workforce and they won't be able to return to private practice because perhaps they left the workforce and were unable to work for longer than 6 years. And in my case, I was completely out of the field for that time. I didn't work at all during that time, and I think to repair this issue, perhaps the board could consider having the rule be that someone cannot work in a private practice after 5 renewals, since a renewal indicates the intention of the registrant to be working in the following year. And I think that's more fair and just, and will resolve a lot of these issues. I've emailed the board regarding these issues. I hope that they will be discussed because, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the restriction on my employment is unconstitutional. I also think that the board's concern about associate farms and exploitation of workers, that concern should be directed towards employers, and that registrants and employees should not be penalized, should not be restricted in their ability to work.
Time's up. Thank you. I do not see any other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, I believe we can close at this moment. Yes, thank you. Thank you, moderator. And we're coming back on boardroom with the adjournment. Actually, the board is adjourned at 11:48 a.m. And thank you all for participating. Thank you to our audience, to our staff here, and to our board member. Thank you so much.